It begins with a subtle shift in the air, the kind you only notice when a busy street suddenly feels too quiet. Traffic lights freeze mid-cycle. Police motorcycles ease into intersections with calm authority, and cars are gently pushed to the side of the road until an entire stretch of highway sits strangely empty, as if the city itself has stepped back to make room. In the distance, the low rumble of engines grows louder, and within moments, a long procession of black vehicles comes into view, gliding forward in perfect formation. Helicopters trace slow circles overhead. Officers stand watch on rooftops, and every side street seems carefully observed. It doesn't look like a normal escort or even a typical security detail. It looks like a moving fortress. At the center of this convoy, surrounded by armed protection, travels a single passenger, the President of the United States. Watching it unfold, it's hard not to wonder how transporting one person became an operation that feels closer to a military deployment than a drive across town. What happened over the course of history to turn a simple trip into one of the most complex security performances on Earth? And what hidden layers of planning make it possible to move the world's most protected leader without ever leaving anything to chance? The answer begins with understanding who that passenger really is. The President of the United States is often described as the most powerful person on Earth, but with that power comes a different kind of visibility, and with visibility comes danger. Every decision made in the Oval Office can shift economies, end wars, or start them, which makes the president not just a political figure, but a symbolic target for anyone who wants to send a message to the world. Protecting that life is not simply about safeguarding one individual. It is about preserving national stability, continuity of government, and global order. History has made the risks painfully clear. Over the course of American history, assassination attempts have been frighteningly common, and 4 presidents were killed while in office. Others survived only through luck or split-second intervention. By the early 20th century, it became obvious that the job itself carried extraordinary danger. And after President William McKinley's assassination in 1901, the responsibility of permanent protection fell squarely on the United States Secret Service. From that point forward, every movement of the president became a carefully planned mission where mistakes were unacceptable and preparation bordered on obsessive. Travel especially turned into the most vulnerable moment of all, because once the president leaves the controlled walls of the White House, the world becomes unpredictable. It wasn't always like this. In the early days of the automobile, presidential travel looked surprisingly ordinary. Presidents rode through cities in stock cars with minimal escort, waving casually to crowds gathered along sidewalks. Security existed, of course, but it was modest, often just a handful of agents and local police. Visibility and connection with the public were considered more important than protection, and open-top vehicles were common because they allowed people to see their leader clearly. Franklin D. Roosevelt famously enjoyed riding in a convertible known as the Sunshine Special, a comfortable touring car designed more for accessibility than safety. There was little armor, little secrecy, and almost none of the heavy equipment we associate with modern motorcades. For a time, it seemed to work. But as the decades passed and threats grew much more sophisticated, that relaxed approach began to feel dangerously naive. Attempts on presidents' lives, along with rising global tensions, forced security planners to rethink everything. In 1950, when gunmen attacked President Harry Truman's temporary residence at Blair House, the sound of bullets echoing through Washington served as a wake-up call. If attackers were willing to storm the president's home, what might they try on an open road? The government responded by commissioning purpose-built armored limousines, adding bullet-resistant glass and reinforced bodies for the first time. Travel slowly transformed from a casual procession to a controlled operation. Then came November 1963, the moment that changed everything. President John F. Kennedy rode through Dallas in an open convertible, smiling and waving to cheering crowds, when gunshots shattered the illusion of safety. The assassination that followed exposed just how vulnerable a moving motorcade could be. Overnight, innocence disappeared. Open-top rides ended forever, and the presidential car was rebuilt with permanent armor and sealed protection. From that point on, every decade brought tighter procedures, heavier vehicles, and more layers of defense, as if history itself were pushing security further and further into overdrive. Other moments reinforced those lessons. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan was walking toward his limousine outside a Washington hotel when an assassin fired 6 shots into the crowd. Agents reacted instantly, shoving him into the armored car and racing to the hospital instead of the White House. That split-second decision saved his life. Afterward, new precautions were added, including dedicated medical support and faster emergency communication. Even near misses carried consequences, each incident tightening the system a little more, refining the choreography until there was almost no room left for chance. By the early 21st century, the motorcade had grown from a few cars into dozens, evolving into something closer to a mobile command center than a simple escort. Technology advanced alongside the threats, introducing blast-resistant chassis, encrypted communications, electronic countermeasures, and vehicles designed to handle scenarios that once seemed unthinkable. The centerpiece of this transformation was a massive armored limousine nicknamed the Beast, a machine so heavily reinforced that it feels less like a car and more like a tank wearing a luxury suit. With thick armor plating, sealed air systems, and emergency medical supplies on board, it represents the culmination of a century's worth of hard-earned lessons. Today, moving the president resembles a military deployment disguised as a road trip. Days before any visit, tactical teams quietly arrive to study maps, inspect buildings, and coordinate with local authorities. Routes are measured and timed, hospitals alerted, and entire areas swept for hazards. When the trip involves another country, the preparation becomes even more dramatic. Massive Air Force cargo planes land first, unloading armored SUVs, communications trucks, and the presidential limousines themselves, because nothing is trusted to chance or borrowed locally. Even helicopters are flown in, ensuring that every piece of equipment has already been tested and secured. Air Force One serves as the first layer of protection, a flying command post with offices, communication suites, and defensive systems that allow the president to run the country from 30,000 feet. Once on the ground, the carefully assembled motorcade forms like a living organism. Route cars speed ahead to double-check the path, followed by police sweepers who seal off intersections and create an empty corridor of road. Lead vehicles guide the pace while intelligence teams monitor every movement around them. At the center ride, the armored limousines, identical in appearance and constantly shifting positions so that no observer can tell which one carries the president. Close behind follows a vehicle filled with elite agents ready to respond instantly, while specialized trucks scan for electronic threats and jam suspicious signals. Tactical teams armed for worst-case scenarios travel alongside, prepared not only to defend, but to counterattack if necessary. A communications van keeps the president connected to the Pentagon and the White House, effectively turning the convoy into a rolling situation room. Even an ambulance trails the formation, stocked with medical equipment and blood supplies, prepared to function as an emergency room on wheels. Surrounding all of it are press vans and additional police, completing the procession. When viewed together, the convoy feels less like transportation and more like a self-contained city moving down the highway. Eventually, the motorcade glides to its destination, slipping through secured gates and disappearing behind layers of agents and barricades. The president steps out, adjusts a jacket, and walks inside to deliver a speech or attend a meeting, while the vehicles remain idling nearby, ready to reform at a moment's notice. To an outsider, it may look like an ordinary arrival, but every second has been meticulously calculated. After the event ends, the entire operation reverses itself with silent efficiency. Equipment is packed, routes cleared again, and the same fortress that appeared so suddenly fades just as quickly, already preparing for the next journey. Seen from a distance, the spectacle can feel excessive, even theatrical, but history explains why it exists. Each armored panel, each decoy vehicle, and each agent standing watch is the result of lessons learned the hard way, reminders that the office carries real and constant risk. Moving the world's most secure leader is not about luxury or showmanship. It is about ensuring that a single life, tied so closely to the stability of an entire nation, is never left vulnerable. The system continues to evolve as new threats emerge, adapting to drones, cyber warfare, and technologies yet to come. And the next time that long line of black vehicles sweeps past and the streets fall silent, it will be easier to understand what you're really seeing. Not just a motorcade, but a century of caution, preparation, and sacrifice, rolling forward together to protect one person whose safety carries the weight of millions.